So in the previous session, we have discussed about the parent-child communication, how to create two components in Salesforce by using Lightning Web Component framework, like the parent component and the child component, and how to pass a value from parent component to the child component, which is a hard-coded value we have discussed in the previous session. Now, today we'll see how to pass a value dynamically at runtime. Now, and then we'll see how to invoke the child component methods from parent component. We'll see that. Let me explain. For example, I have two components are available. This is the parent component. And then we have child component also. Let's consider this as a child component. And this is the parent component. Two components are available. So this is the child component. And this is the parent component. Then how can we pass a value from child component to, so the parent to child, okay, dynamically at runtime, we'll see. For example, inside this child component, I'm writing some piece of code. I'm defining a property. I'm having this class, default, class, some child component, extends, lightning element. Here I'm defining a property, @API. Why I'm using this @API is because API properties are nothing but public properties. For these properties, we can pass a value from parent. If I'm defining it as a track decorated properties are purely private properties to the component. Within the component can be accessible. But now I have two components are available. From parent to child, I want to pass a value dynamically at runtime. It's not static value, dynamic value I would like to pass. In that case here, I'm defining this a child component property as decorated with @API. Because @API decorator is going to be making this property public, which can be accessible from parent so that we can pass a value from parent to child component property. I'm indicating this here. Child property. I'm assigning some value here. Now I would like to indicate child component property. I'm assigning some value, child component property. So inside the child component, I have defined a property with the name child property. In this child property, I'm representing this message child component property. Now this property I'm accessing from my child component. Here I'm having this a template. By template, I would like to indicate the content here. Child property value. I'm representing this child property. So whatever the property name that we have, I'm giving this property name. It will collect this value child component property. The value will be visible here. Now I'm representing this content. Now the output will be, it will show child component property. So whatever the output that we have assigned, that output will be getting visible here. Because inside this component, we have assigned the value for this property as child component property, the property will be getting visible. Okay? Clear up to this one? Simple concept. Just I have defined one property inside that class. I'm representing the result on my lighting component, that's it, nothing else. I'm displaying that value. Now, for this property, can we assign the value from parent component? Yes or no? Yes, we can assign because this property has been defined as @API decorated. So @API decorated means this is a public property. It's a public variable we can access from other class also. That means other component also. So now we have a parent component. From this parent component, I would like to make it accessible here. Now, in this case here, in this parent component, how can we access this component? Okay, we'll see. Here we are having this a template tag by template. Here I want to place a button component over here. I'm placing a button component. Lightning button. Label equals to, I'm giving the label as set value. And then I'm indicating on click. I would like to specify the method. Which method you would like to call? Upon click on the button, I would like to invoke a method here. Now I'm giving that method name as handle. Okay, handle set value. This is a method here. Okay, this is a method. Understood the concept here? In my parent component, just I'm placing a button component over. That button component name is set value. On click, that means upon click on that button, I would like to call this method, that is handle set value method. Now inside my JavaScript, I would like to prepare that method. I'm preparing that method here. We are having export default class parent component. Rest of the things will be same. Now here I'm preparing the method handle set value method. Now I want to set some value for that particular property. Now what I want to do, so now from this particular method, I want to assign some value for this property here. Then how can we assign the value? For that one, I would like to define one variable over here. That means a property. In that property, I will assign some value. Now this property, I would like to assign to my child component property. Okay. Now, let's see how can we do that. Now I'm defining a property here. @track parent value equals to, we can able to define the property here. Now I want to assign the value. This dot parent value equals to new value has been assigned. New value has been assigned. So now I have defined a property over here. This is a track decorated property. For this property, I'm assigning this value with the name new value has been assigned. This value I would like to pass to my child component property. In that case here, we can specify this. Now, in this case, we can call this component. How can we call this a child component? You know, C hyphen child component by C hyphen child component. Here I want to assign the value. For which one? For the child property. So we can specify child property equals to whatever the property we have assigned, like as parent value. Parent value. That means what here? In this parent value variable. Okay, in this parent value variable, whatever the value we have stored, that value I'm assigning to child component property. Inside the child component, there is a property called as child property here. This is a property name. child property. For this property, I'm assigning the value over here. Yesterday, what we did here in this itself, in single quote, I have assigned some value hard coded. But now I'm not assigning the hard coded value. I'm assigning the value from the parent component here. So as soon as once I click on the button control, now the button is going to be assigning this new value here. New value has been assigned. It will store into this property over here. This value I'm going to be storing inside my child property. Okay. So not only hard coding the values always for the child component, we can pass some dynamic values also at runtime also to the child component property. So that here, so but that already told you, whenever if you want to pass the value from parent to child, we are using API decorated. In that case, we can pass the value from parent component to the child component property. Yesterday I showed you the hard coded mechanism. Now I'm showing the dynamic mechanism over. Okay, clear? Now, so now let's see how can we do this one. Yes, because here I have given like as a track decorated. Why? Because for this one we are not passing the value, we are not assigning the value from another component here. So now this value will be accessible till where it will be accessing here only, here within the component only. This value we are passing to whom? To a property. This property is available where? In the child component. Okay, because child will be public property, parent private property also here. Understood the concept here? Now, now let's see how can we do that. Let me show you with the practical use case. Now I'm creating a new Lightning Web component. Child property value component. Child property value component. Now I'm creating a new Lightning Web component now. Inside this, I'm defining a property, which is an API decorated property here. Child property. I'm assigning some values. Yes. Now in Lightning Web component, inside the JavaScript class, whatever the variables you are going to define, those are called as properties. That already we have discussed. Now, this is a child component property value. This is a child component property value. So now whenever we are using this API decorated, we have to use that API namespace inside your import statement. API. Just I'm defining a property with the name child property. Inside that, I'm storing some hard coded message. This value I would like to show on my Lightning component here. Go to that HTML file, that means template file. Inside the template file, we can show that. I'm indicating Lightning card. Lightning card. Title equals to child component. Icon name equals to standard account. Inside that, I would like to specify child component property value. I would like to represent child property. So whatever the value, whatever the property we have defined, just this property value I'm showing on my Lightning component. That's it here, nothing else. I'm not doing anything. Just I have defined one property. In this property, we have stored some value. This value I'm representing on my Lightning Web component over here inside that Lightning card. I have prepared a Lightning card. Inside the Lightning card, I'm representing this content. That's it. Now, this is a single component here. Now, in this component, whatever the property that we have, this is the property, child property. For this one value, I want to set from parent component here. From another component, I want to pass the value. So that I'm creating one more component. parent property value component. I'm defining one more component here. Right, it will override that child component property value. Here I'm preparing the button component here, lightning button. Label equals to set parent value. Now I would like to specify variant. Variant equals to brand. On click equals to handle set parent value. I would like to prepare a method. So I'm preparing a button component on my parent component over here with the name set parent value. Variant will be of type brand. Appearance I want to show. On click, upon click on this button, I want to call the method handle set parent value. Now let me prepare the method. I'm preparing the method. So now here in this case, I would like to assign some hard-coded value. So I'm defining a property at the rate track now parent value. So we have to use track namespace. Here I'm assigning the value here. This dot parent value equals to, I would like to specify new value, or else you can specify. This is parent component value assigned on button click. I'm assigning some message. Now inside this particular property, parent value property, I'm assigning the value here. I'm storing some message. This is parent component value assigned on button click. Now this particular value I want to assign to the child component here. How can we assign? Now let's see. Go to that, the parent component here. Call that child component. How can we call? C hyphen child property value component. C hyphen child property value component. This is my component name. In this one, we have a property called as child property. What is the property name that you are given? Child property. Child hyphen property. Child hyphen property equals to, I'm assigning the value here. Which value you would like to assign? I'm assigning the value from this parent value. That's it. As soon as once you click on this button control, now in that particular button control here, okay, in that particular button control, it will be calling this method. The method is going to be assigning this value over here. Now in this particular property, the value will be stored. This value will be assigning to child property automatically. Okay. Now let me run this one here. How can we call this? I would like to go to my default arg. Go to the developer console. I'm accessing this parent property value component here. Parent property value component. When I click on preview, the parent component will be getting accessed over here. It will show the button. By default, it is showing that parent child component property value is empty. Okay, empty. Why? Because here what is happening in this case here, whenever I'm running the parent component is going to be assigning the value. When it will assign the value, when I click on the button only, this value will be assigned. But by default, what is the value it has stored inside this empty? That's what it is showing, that empty over here. If you want to give some default value here, we can specify here. Default parent component value. default parent component value here. Let's see. If I'm assigning this default value for this property, it will show that value here. Refresh the screen now. Child component property value will be overriding with child parent component value here. Now it is showing the message the default parent component value. As soon as once you click on this button control, set a parent value, automatically the value will be assigning from parent component to child component here. So it is indicating that message, this is parent component value assigned on. Upon button click, it will be assigning this value to the child component property here. Okay, understood the concept now? Next. Now, suppose for example, sometimes you can raise a question. Sir, instead of upon click on this button component, whenever I'm going to be entering some text box value, that value I want to assign to my child component property here. Then in that case, what we can do? Now just we can able to place an input component also here. I'm using a div tag. Lighting input label equals to enter new value. I'm indicating this property over here. Value equals to parent value. Okay, value equals to parent value. Now, placeholder equals to now enter new value. Here I'm indicating on change. Whenever I'm changing some new value here, I would like to call the method handle on change. Okay, handle on change. Now I'm invoking this method. Name property not required. Name property not required. So now here I'm going to be using this event parameter to collect the event details. I would like to specify this dot parent value equals to, now I would like to specify event dot target dot value. That means what? So whatever the text box that we have placed right now, in the text box, whatever the value we have entered, I'm collecting this value. This value I'm storing into my property here. From there, automatically it will be assigning the value to my child component property by default. Now, let's see in this case here. I want to place this button component also inside it. Now let's see. Refresh the screen now. Here I'm having this text box. In this text box, we have assigned some value. Now, whenever I'm going to be removing this content here, on change. This is not yet saved. Now let's see. Refresh this. This is a child component. This is a parent component over here. Now I'm changing this, removing this value. Whenever I'm making the changes in the child parent component, automatically same will be reflecting on child components also over here. I'm assigning some new value here. This is my new value assigned to the child component. From parent component. Okay. Whenever we are making some changes in that parent, automatically that will be reflecting on child also automatically by default. Not only upon click on the button control, we can able to pass the value dynamically at runtime whenever we are making some changes in that parent component also. Okay. So that here for the child component, we can pass the value from parent component also. It may be hard coded value, it may be dynamic value upon click on button control, or upon changing the text box value also automatically, this new value will be setting to the child component here. Okay, this is how we can pass the value from parent component to child component here. But practice will be very, very important here. To be frank, it will be looking like us confused. I think I have observed blank faces today. Okay, now, so now here, if you do the practice, then only you can understand. But don't do the practice blindly. First of all, create a child component and then do the testing. Okay, whether it is visible or not. Then go with the parent component. Here, create a parent component and then for that one, assign the value upon button click. Then test it. Then place the text box over here. Then enter some value. We can pass to the child component. Because component communications are very, very important and the implementation part in every interview, it will be a common question. How to pass the value from parent to child. Okay, it's a common question in every interview. So that we can say, whenever if you want to pass the value from parent to child, then we can go with the help of API decorator. Through the API decorator, we can pass the value from child to parent. So parent to child. Okay. Now, parent to child. Child to parent means events, custom events. Not this event, custom events. Custom events. These are all our built-in events, right? Okay, on click, on change. These are all our built-in events. These are called as browser events or client-side events. We have to prepare our own custom events. Don't say events. Okay, events means it will be having two types. Client side, okay, your custom events here. Okay, compulsory custom events are mandatory. I'm giving this use case requirement. Now, let me place this code. Here, next. Now, here fine. For example, here, as of now, what we did in the child component, if it is having some property, but this property we are assigning some values. Okay, fine. For example, here I have a method. Now, I'm having a method here. Inside the child component, I'm having a method, okay, which will be a non-parameterized method, okay, which is a non-parameterized method. So now here in this case, how to call this a method from parent component now? Property values were passing from parent component, okay, fine. In the child component, if you're having a method, how to call this a method from the parent? Now, for example, I'm having one more method here, API. I'm having a parameterized method as well. I have two methods. One non-parameterized, one parameterized. How to call these methods from parent? Not only passing the values for the child component properties, okay, from the parent, we can call the child component methods also from parent component. In that case, how can we call the child component methods from parent component? If it is a non-parameterized, how to call? If it is a parameterized, how to pass the parameter values for this? Generally, whenever we are having Apex programming, we are creating some parameterized methods. We can call the methods. How can we call? By creating object of the class. If it is a non-normal method, not a static method. Static methods we can call by using class name dot method name. If the method is having any parameters, we need to pass the parameter values, right? Like the similar fashion. So now in this particular JavaScript, if I'm having a API method, public method, which is a parameterized, how to call this method from parent component, how to pass the value for parameters here. Now, this is also one of the most important functionality in Lightning Web Component. So not only passing the value to the properties, we need to invoke that methods also. It may be parameterized, it may be non-parameterized. How to do that? Let me show you here. Now, let me explain. For example, here, I'm having this a child component. Okay, I'm having this a child component. I'm having this a child component. In this child component, I'm having a method. It's a non-parameterized method. Now, I'm having this class export export default class now child component methods extends lightning element. Here I'm preparing a method at the rate API show custom message, which is a non-parameterized. In this method here, we are having some alert message. Alert, this is a child component non-parameterized method. This is a child component non-parameterized method. So now this is the child component that we have. In this child component, I'm having a method which is a public method which can be accessible from parent components over here because we have decorated with @API. Now this is a method named show custom message component method here. Now this method will be having some message over there inside that. Here we can show console.log also whatever you want, anything you can do that. Any logic, whatever you want, you can write. Now this method I want to call from parent. How can we call this method from parent? What we can do? Hmm. How can we do that? For example, I'm having a normal Apex class. Come to the Apex programming here. Public class, some sample class. I'm having a method. Public void show message. It's a public method. I'm showing some message here. System.debug. This is non-parameterized method. Non-parameterized method. So I have a class, I have a method. How can we call this class method? Class name that. Look into the method. We need to create object of the class. Why we need to create the object of the class? Is it a static method or non-static method? Non-static. How do you know non-static method? How do you know non-static? Hmm. Same.
Because there is no static keyword.
We haven't written any static keyword. Okay, we haven't written any static keyword. Public, static, void. We are giving the method name generally. Here we haven't given any static keyword. So this is not a static method. It's a normal method. How to call this a method? We need to create the object of the class. How? Sample class, some s class equals to new sample class. That means what? This object will be holding the instance of this class, the reference of the class. Now through this reference we can access. So yes class dot show method. That means object name dot method. Okay. So we are creating the object of the class. So what is the meaning of this object right now? What this object indicates? Now this object is going to be holding the address of this particular class over here. Now this is a class name, sample class. Now we are giving this object name. This object will be holding the address of the class where exactly the class is available. So based on this address, we can go to the address, we can call the method by using object name dot show message method here. Now, like the similar fashion here also, whenever we are having some child component method, this is the child component method over here. If you want to get the reference, that means this is a child component name. What is the child component name over here? Child property value component over here. Okay, child property component value component. Now, for example, let's come to our scenario here. What is the child component name? For example, I have given this a name as child component. I'm giving the name as child component over here. Now the component name I'm giving like a child component. In this case here, how can we reference that? Let me show you. First of all, we have to get the reference of that component. Which component method you want to invoke? Child component method. So here we are creating the object, right? To get the reference of the class. Like the similar way, we have to create the reference here. For that one, this dot template dot query selector. Okay, we need to get the reference of that component. Get the reference of the component. Now this dot template dot query selector. So go to that component here, collect that component reference. Now what is the component name? Here we can specify C hyphen child component. We can give that component name in the form of kebab case format because I have given the child component name as what? Child component over here. So now we can store that reference inside a property here. That means variable where child reference. Okay. Now, like as object creation, whenever we are creating the object, it is storing the address of your class. So here also this dot template dot query selector. So this query selector method will be going to this component name. Whatever the component name that I have given, C hyphen child hyphen component. Whatever the component name that I have given, it will go to that component. It will collect the reference of that component where exactly the component is located. It will store that reference inside my variable over here. That means child reference, like as your object creation. Now, after that, once the object is available, how to call the method then? Object name dot method name. That's it. Here also call the method. What is that object name here? Child reference. Child reference dot. What is the method name that I have given here? Show custom message. Right, that's it. Show custom message. That's it, over. These are the two lines of code we need to write. Okay. Now, like as object creation, we are using this dot template dot query selector. And then, so now we are collecting the address of a component. Which component address? This is the component address here. Here we are giving that class name. Okay, this class reference we are going to be collecting, we are storing into the object over here. Like the similar fashion, we are going to this component, collect the address of the component, storing into my reference variable child reference. From there, we can use that object name dot, call that method name directly. Same like as your normal Apex programming concept. Just you can relate them. It will be very easy to understand. Okay. Don't by heart the steps over here. Relate this concept with your Apex programming. Then it will be very easy to understand. Okay. Understood the concept now? Now, this is one way. So now this is for the child component method which is non-parameterized. If it is a parameterized, then, for example, I'm creating a method here. I'm creating a method. At the rate API, show employee details. I would like to show the message here. Employee name is, I would like to show. Name dot first name. I'm giving a space. Last name. Now, these are the two parameters over here. Okay, first name, last name. We need to pass these two values here. Now, we need to pass two values over here. Now, here in this case, what needs to be done? If the method is of type a parameterized method, how can we pass this parameter value? We need to pass a value for first name. We need to pass a value for last name here. These two values we need to supply. How to pass these two values over here? Now, in this case, we have to pass these two values here in the form of a single parameter, like as EMP name parameter, single. How to combine two values of type string? We are using objects. Okay, when coming to the JavaScript, you know the concept of arrays and objects here. We need to pass two values over here. Now, I need to combine them. In the form of objects, we need to pass. Then what needs to be done? Here also the same concept over here. Here also the same concept. First of all, get the reference. Get the reference over here. Now pass the parameters. Create the parameters first. Prepare the parameter values. I'm indicating that where now employee name equals to, I'm creating an object here. Okay, object. Why are we are giving this object says, here we are passing how many parameters? Two. Two parameters we are passing over here. Employee first name, last name here. For first name, what value you are going to pass? For last name, what value you are going to pass? We need to indicate specifically here. For that reason, if it is a object, then we can able to pass in the form of key and the value phase. That already we have discussed. In this case, we are going to be indicating here. Now, we need to specify first name, colon, I'm giving the value some Ramesh, comma, last name, I'm giving the value some Kumar. I'm preparing these two values over here, two parameter values. Okay, now we need to prepare this parameter, that means object here. In this object, we can able to hold the values for multiple parameters also over here. And then once it is available, then we can able to pass it. That's it, over. One additional step. Okay, understood the concept now? Now, suppose in this case, if this value we have entered in the text boxes, then what needs to be done? We need to collect the value from text boxes directly over. Okay, clear? Understood the concept now? If it is a non-parameterized, this is the approach. If it is a parameterized, this is the approach we used to follow to call this okay, child component methods from parent component also. It may be non-parameterized, it may be parameterized also over here. Okay, now let's see how can we do that here. Let me show you. Now, in this child component, I'm preparing this method here, two methods. Show custom message component, which will be representing the message. This is a child component method, okay, which is a non-parameterized. Second one, show employee details method, which will be indicating this, having a parameter here. This is a child component method, which is a parameterized, and the employee name is employee details, that first name and the last. Okay, now I want to call this a two methods, okay, from parent. In the parent component, I want to place the two buttons over here. The first button is to call that non-parameterized method. Second button is to call parameterized method. How to write the logic, we'll see with the practical view. Now, go to that parent component now. Here I'm placing these two buttons. Lightning button label equals to non-parameterized method, and variant I'm equals to brand outline. On click, we need to call that functionality. Which method? Handle call non-parameterized. Handle call non-parameterized. I'm preparing this method. I'm preparing the method. In this method, we need to collect the reference. Now, I would like to specify where I'm indicating this custom message equals to this dot template dot query selector. Here we need to specify your component name. What is the component name here? Child property value component. So we can specify C hyphen child hyphen property hyphen value component. Now, so this dot, okay, template dot query selector, we can specify the component name. Now here it is populating this here. Custom message dot show custom message method here. Directly we can able to reference like as IntelliSense. It is providing the IntelliSense also over here. Now I would like to specify custom message dot, what is the method name over here? Show custom message. That's it. Custom message means this is my reference name. Object name dot method name. That's it. Simple. We have to define this here. Next, the second button component here. I'm placing one more button. I'm giving a break tag. I'm preparing one more button. Lightning button label equals to parameterized method. Variant equals to brand outline. On click equals to handle call parameterized. Call parameterized. I'm invoking this method. Here also the same, where now show employee details here. Now it is adding this component over here. Instead of custom message, I would like to specify that now employee details show employee details, which will be tracking that information over here. Now, I would like to pass these values over here. So we need to pass the value in the form of objects over here because it is clearly indicating some information. It is giving online help to you. So now here in this particular method, okay, in this particular method, we are having some property here, employee details property. For that one, we need to pass the parameter values here. Like this, in the form of this JavaScript object, we need to pass the parameter values. Now we need to indicate that. I'm preparing a property where emp details equals to, I'm creating an object parameter. I'm giving that first name, some Rahul, comma, last name, I'm giving some Rathod. Now we need to call this here. Show employee details dot, what is the method name? Show employee details. Now show employee info. For example, I'm indicating as info. Here we need to pass emp details. That's it. Okay. So now here just we are collecting the object of this particular component. That means reference of the component. We are storing into that parameter here variable. We are preparing that parameter values. What values you would like to pass. We are invoking the method by using reference name dot method name. We are passing the parameter. Then we have to collect that value into your normal properties and then we can pass it. That's it. Same. Now, let me save this. Let's run this component. We have placed these two buttons here, non-parameterized, parameterized. These two are parent components buttons. When I click on this, it will call the method here. It is indicating this is a child component method, which is a non-parameterized. Now, when I click on this parameterized method, it will show the message. This is a child component method, which is a parameterized. Employee name is, it is indicating Rahul Rathod. Whatever the first name and the last name that were specified, based on that, it is populating these values. Okay. Now, suppose for example, if you want to pass this first name and the last name at runtime, then we can place two text boxes over here. Let me show you. I'm placing two text boxes over here. Here I would like to create a lightning card. Okay, lightning card. Now, title equals to parent to child methods. Icon name equals to standard case icon. Here I would like to place the two text boxes. Lightning input. I'm giving label equals to enter first name, and then I would like to specify placeholder equals to first name, and then I want to specify value property. Value equals to, we need to define two properties over here. Inside this JavaScript, I would like to specify two properties. At the rate track, I would like to specify that value over here. Now emp first name at the rate track emp last name. Now this property I am going to be specifying to this particular first text box, second text box. Lightning input label equals to enter last name, placeholder last name, value equals to, I want to specify that property, emp last name. And then I'm giving the break tag. I'm placing these two buttons here. I'm placing these two buttons. Upon click on this button component, whatever the values are available, I would like to pass. So instead of hard coding these values here, instead of Rahul, we can specify this dot emp first name, here this dot emp last name. That's it. Whatever the values we are going to enter, those values will be getting populated here. Now, let me show you. Let's run this. We are having a separate lighting card over here. I'm giving this, okay, once you click on non-parameterized, it will call the method which is a non-parameterized method. I'm giving the first name as some Sandeep, last name as some Kumar. When I click on parameterize the method, it is indicating undefined values. Now, let me assign the values for this. On change, no. On change equals to handle first name change. I'm assigning this. Event. This dot emp first name equals to event dot target dot value. I'm preparing this. Handle last name change. Emp last name equals to, now I would like to call this method also. Now, so whatever the values, whenever I'm changing the values, those values also I'm collecting, I'm reflecting inside my properties. From there, that new values we can able to pass to that. Let's see. Refresh the screen now. I'm giving this first name as Sandeep, last name some Kumar. When I click on parameterize the method, it is indicating that name. This is a child component method, which is a parameterized. The employee name will be Sandeep Kumar will be getting visible over here. So we no need to pass these values a hard-coded one. We can pass a value dynamically at runtime also by using text boxes. In the text box, whatever the values we have entered, those values will be passing to the child component. Child component will be representing the corresponding message over here. Okay. So this is how we can implement the parent to child communication as part of your Lighting Web component. So we can able to pass the value from parent to child component here. So in that case, we can pass the hard coded value for the property, or else we can pass the value dynamically at runtime. We can call the methods also from the parent component, which is a non-parameterized, and we can call the parameterized method. In that case, we can pass the hard coded value, and then we can pass the dynamic values at runtime by placing text boxes. All these things we have discussed. Okay. So this parent to child communication is very, very important as part of your Lighting Web component framework. It's 100% common question in every interview as well. How to provide the communication between two Lighting Web components in Lighting framework? It's a common question. Then we can say, so now if it is a parent to child, we can go with the help of, okay, API decorator. If it is child to parent, we can go with the help of custom events. Okay. Now, so now in this case, you can they will raise a question how to pass a value for the child component methods which are parameterized. Then we can use the help of this. Okay, this is the approach. We can pass a value hard coded or we can pass a value dynamically at runtime also by placing text boxes. Okay, for that one we have to use this dot template dot query selector, specify the component name, which will be collecting the reference of the component, storing into that property. From there we can invoke by using property name dot the method by passing the parameters. Okay, clear now. But if you do the practice, then we'll get the clarity on this. Okay, because it will be looking like us completely confused. Okay, today. So now here, if you do the practice, then you can understand very easily here. Okay. First of all, try to understand the functionality. Just to take a rough notebook over here, just you can able to write the diagrams over there. Then you can understand that. So this is the child, this is the parent. Now here we have the property. Here we have a button. When I click on button, we are calling this property here. Then method. Then how can we call that here? And then parameterized method. Like that, one by one, you can understand very easy. Okay, clear? Now, this is how we can provide the communication from parent to child. Next. The next one here, as of now, we have invoked JavaScript functions. Then how to invoke Apex class methods? How to invoke Apex class method, that is called as invoking server calls. How to invoke that Apex class methods? Okay, we'll see in the next session. On Monday, we are going to discuss about calling Apex class methods. There, I am going to use the help of a decorator, while decorator. So now in that case, there we are going to be having two scenarios are available here. Whenever we are invoking the Apex class methods, how can we call the Apex class method? And then how to call the Apex class method, which is a non-parameterized, which is a parameterized here. How to call, we'll see both the scenarios. There we have again two more scenarios here. How to call this Apex class method whenever the component is getting loaded. Upon loading the component, how to call that method? In that case, we are using while decorator here. If you want to call the Apex class method, upon click on a button control on the Lightning framework, then we have to use the help of a feature called as imperative methods. So by using imperative methods, we can able to call that okay Apex class method upon click on a button, upon changing the text box, upon selecting a checkbox, like that. Based on some events, if you want to call the Apex class method, then we can go with imperative methods. In that imperative method, two more scenarios again here. In that case, whatever the result written by that particular method, how to store inside a JavaScript property, that is one case. And then whenever we are invoking the method, whatever the result written by the method, how to store in a JavaScript function here. So there we are using two more scenarios here practically. All these scenarios we'll see one by one in upcoming week over here. So before that, you should be perfect with this all these concepts. Okay, you should be thorough with this parent to child communication. Then it will be very easy to understand how can we call Apex class methods. As of now, we have concentrated on designing, then JavaScript we have entered. Now we are entering JavaScript to Apex class methods. How to do that, we'll see with practical. Okay, right, yes, thank you.